Snow White is one of the most beloved fairy tales in the world, thanks in large part to Walt Disney. But behind the magic of the original Disney princess lies a much darker tale, one that has haunted the women who dared to lend their voice to her. From blacklisting to tragedy, every actress who has stepped into Snow White's shoes has faced strange misfortune. Some have even wondered, is Snow White cursed? In 1937, Walt Disney released Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the first full-length animated feature in history. It was a groundbreaking achievement and made Walt Disney a household name. But for the young woman behind Snow White's iconic voice, Adriana Caselotti, the story turned out far less magical. Caselotti was just 18 years old when she recorded the role. She earned $970, roughly $21,000 in today's money. Not bad for a teenager, but compared to the massive profits the film pulled in, she got next to nothing. Even worse, she received no royalties, no residuals, and not even proper credit. What Caselotti didn't know at the time was that Disney had effectively ended her career before it even began. When other studios tried to hire her, like The Jack Benny Show, one of the biggest radio programs of the era, Walt personally blocked her. His reasoning, he didn't want Snow White's voice to appear anywhere else, fearing it would ruin the magic.
Because if you can find someone who can do both, it carries through. As I speak, goodbye, that's the saha, I'm singing as I speak. If you listen to Snow White speaking all through the film, it's sing-song.
Oh, she'll never find me here. And if you let me stay, I'll keep house for you.
In fact, Caselotti didn't even know she was making a movie. She thought she was voicing another short cartoon. Imagine her surprise when the film premiered to worldwide acclaim, and she was left out of the spotlight. For years, she struggled to find work, but she did manage to sneak her voice into 2 other projects. But you have to listen closely. In The Wizard of Oz, when the Tin Man sings, "If I Only Had a Heart," you'll hear Caselotti's Juliet whispering,
"The voice sings low.
Wherefore art thou, Romeo?"
She also sang background vocals in It's a Wonderful Life, but once again, she wasn't credited.
Glad you come. Glad you. How about some of that good spaghetti? We got everything.
She scraped together a living by selling autographs, singing in operas, and she also wrote a how-to book called Do You Like to Sing? It wasn't until decades later, in the 1990s, that Disney finally embraced her contribution. She recorded a special track for Disneyland's Snow White Wishing Well, and in 1994, she was named a Disney legend. But by then, the damage had been done. Adriana Caselotti passed away in 1997 at the age of 80, having spent most of her life shut out of the career she deserved.
My father was a singing teacher here in Los Angeles, and one day one of the Walt Disney representatives called his studio and asked if he knew of a little girl who could sing and speak like a child. And I was listening in on the extension phone upstairs, and I said, "Papa, how about me?"
The next woman to don the crown of Snow White was Mary Kay Bergman, whose voice defined an entirely new generation of Disney fans. In the 1990s, Bergman stepped in to provide Snow White's voice for various projects, at a time when Disney still needed someone to carry on Caselotti's role. But while her career was far more varied, Bergman's fate was no less tragic. Bergman had been grinding for years before making it in Hollywood. She worked odd jobs, from a receptionist at the Boy Scouts to a clerk at Robinson's department store. But when she was asked to voice Snow White, everything changed. Suddenly, she was Disney's go-to talent. Her range was incredible. In addition to voicing Snow White from 1989 to 1999, she voiced the Bimbettes in Beauty and the Beast.
There he goes, isn't he dreaming?
Quasimodo's mother in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and countless other Disney background characters. She became the new voice of Daphne Blake in Scooby-Doo, voiced Gwen Stacy in the Spider-Man cartoon, and of course, if you were a fan of South Park in the 90s, nearly every female character came from her vocal cords. But behind all that success, Bergman was fighting a silent battle. She suffered from severe anxiety and depression, but she kept it hidden, even from her closest friends. Bergman feared that if anyone found out, she'd lose everything. On November 11, 1999, the pressure became too much. Mary Kay Bergman wrote 2 notes, one for her husband and one for a close friend, and then she ended her life at just 38 years old. Her death shocked fans and colleagues alike. For someone with such a joyful and versatile voice, her inner pain was unbearable. In 2021, Disney announced a live-action remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, with a young actress named Rachel Zegler in the starring role. On paper, it looked like a dream come true. Zegler had already been cast in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story remake, and Snow White could have cemented her as a new Disney princess for the modern era. Instead, the project was plagued by controversy. From the start, fans criticized Disney's decision to reimagine the dwarfs using CGI instead of using actual dwarves. Peter Dinklage, from Game of Thrones fame, was pretty public in his criticism as the movie was being made.
They were very proud to cast a Latino actress as Snow White, but it makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that backward story of 7 dwarves living in a cave.
They also decided to reframe Snow White as a more independent character, leading to Rachel Zegler making derogatory comments about the original film.
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
The backlash was immediate. Longtime Disney fans accused her of disrespecting the very film that built Disney's empire. Online campaigns against the movie spread, and Disney quietly delayed the release. And when it finally hit theaters in March 2025, the magic didn't follow. Disney poured nearly $270 million into the live-action remake, but the film only managed to bring in about $205 million worldwide. By Hollywood standards, it was a huge flop. While Zegler's story is still unfolding, the controversy and box office disaster have only deepened the myth of the Snow White curse, suggesting that no actress can wear the crown without paying a big price. The story of Snow White has left behind a trail of misfortune. Of course, whether or not a curse really exists is up for debate. Maybe it's just coincidence. Maybe it's the weight of living up to one of the most famous fairy tales ever told. But one thing is clear, the women who brought her to life have never had a fairy tale ending.